Welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television, and thanks for joining us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. By Friday, February the 11th, more than 408 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 were recorded globally, with a death toll of over 5.8 million. In Nigeria, there were more than 253,000 confirmed cases, and deaths were 3,140. The number of globally administered vaccines has risen steadily beyond 10 billion, and in Nigeria, first dose shots are over 16 million, while more than 6.6 million people are fully vaccinated. Now, cardiovascular diseases took an estimated 17.9 million lives in 2019. Measuring 32% of all global deaths. Most of these were due to heart attack and stroke. The World Health Organization, which put out these statistics, says more cardiovascular diseases can be prevented by simple life changes. My guest is a consultant cardiologist and chief medical director of United Heart Hospital and Clinics. You're welcome to the show, Dr. Eugene Nwosu.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's start off with, we're talking about heart health, heart disease in women. Let me ask you, are there symptoms that are unique to women? Symptoms women have of heart disease that men don't necessarily have?
Very much so. But before I go into that, we need to emphasize that heart disease is women's health and women's disease is heart disease. Women worry about breast cancer, self-exam every day, they check mammogram, but breast cancer death is just 4%. And 45% of women actually die of cardiovascular diseases.
45%?
45%. Okay. Worldwide, about 44% of men and women die of cardiovascular disease, and cancer is just 19%.
Okay, so the figure has increased since 2019, is what you're saying?
It has always been predominantly cardiovascular disease. So the point is that women should worry more about their heart than their breast, period. Okay? So when you talk, and there's several factors. Okay, one is the atypical presentation. The presentation of heart disease in women is not classic. The textbook definition, chest heaviness, like tightness, and you can't breathe. For women, it's actually not the classic presentation. And because of that, they don't know they're having a heart attack.
So how does it present?
Presentation could be pain in unusual places. It could be pain in the back, pain in the neck, in the shoulder. It could be I just don't feel right. It's like...
Wait, pain in the neck could be a heart attack?
Of course. It could be in your neck, to your jaw, to your arm. Sometimes it's pain in your arm, not in your chest. Okay.
But if a woman is having pain in the arm, should she be thinking of a heart attack? What would come to a woman's mind?
Basically, it's not in isolation.
Okay.
So, to understand this subject very well, you need to know the risk factors. Okay.
But have you finished with the symptoms? Because this is sounding so interesting.
No, you put me away.
Let's finish with the symptoms.
You put me away from
so that we, we have an idea what she's looking at.
It could be just fatigue. I don't feel right. It could be cold. Something is not right with me. It could be palpitation. The heart is just skipping and fluttering. It could be
she can
fatigue,
feel it.
just tiredness.
Okay.
No energy. Okay. It could be even nausea. Sometimes they think they're having indigestion or they're having gastroenteritis, they're vomiting. Especially people with diabetes. When you have diabetes, it can mask the symptoms of heart attack. So the presentation is not classic. So they don't relate it to heart attack or heart disease. So this is not in isolation. Because for you to actually get it right, you have to know your risk profile. What is your risk factors? And for women have more risk factors than men. Why? They have the traditional risk factors that applies to every body, men and female. And they also have risk factors that are peculiar to women. So overall, women have more risk factors. And we can go through this quickly so that people understand.
Yes.
Now, traditional risk factors, family history, strong family history. Another one is high blood pressure. It's very common, especially in this part of the world. Diabetes, high cholesterol, smoking, obesity, especially big belly, okay, central obesity. What about lack of physical activity, exercise? What about poor diet? People here take biscuit and Coke as breakfast. That is a no-no. What about inflammation? Poor dental hygiene. All these things are the conventional risk factors.
Yes.
Now, for women, the non-traditional risk factors that are peculiar to women is hypertensive disease of pregnancy. People get pregnant, they have never been having hypertension, then their blood pressure goes up, and sometimes they have preeclampsia. So even after delivery, years after that, that risk factor remains. What about preterm deliveries? Any pregnancy delivered before 37 weeks is preterm labor, especially people that deliver less than 34 weeks.
And that's a risk factor.
That's a risk factor that follows them through life. What about gestational diabetes? Some people don't have diabetes with pregnancy now, their blood sugar goes up. After delivery, that's a risk factor that follows them through life. What about depression? Depression is more common in women. Depression can lead to heart disease can lead to depression.
Then why do people give us the impression that heart disease is a man's disease?
It is not. That's why we need to get the word out. I haven't finished. What about inflammation, inflammatory disease, like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis? Those are more common in women, and inflammation causes heart attack, plaque rupture, and stroke. Okay. And then what about breast cancer, especially cancer of the left breast? So if it's treated with radiation therapy, it can damage the arteries and cause a plaque.
That makes a lot of sense.
It can damage the valves and cause heart failure. If they receive chemotherapy, some chemotherapy agents can damage the heart muscle, leading to cardiomyopathy and heart failure. And depression is also more common in women. So you can see traditional risk factors, women have it. And the one peculiar to women, they have it. So they have more risk factors.
Does this not pose a problem when it comes to diagnosis?
Well, again, there are a couple of things to look at diagnosis. Number one is the atypical nature, because the symptoms are unusual presentation. The women don't know it's heart disease they're having. And also, some doctors, even in the United States, where I practiced for many years, miss their diagnosis of heart disease in women. So some doctors, don't even get it right. So, and women are having the problem, they don't know it's heart disease, they stay home, and by the time they present, it's too late. If you're having a heart attack, time is very important. The earlier you present, the better the outcome.
What about these heart attacks that they call, like, they involve the microvascular, little vessels in the body?
Okay.
So if she has a heart attack and, it may just go and she doesn't know. Isn't that right?
Now you brought up an important, something we need to clarify here or explain. Okay. So I've talked about atypical presentation. I talked about presenting late to the doctors. I talked about doctors that are not well trained missing the diagnosis. Women also, by anatomy, generally speaking, the size of their arteries are smaller. Oh. Okay. So an artery that is big, that is having a heart attack, when you do coronary angiogram, in other words, you do the dye test to look at the arteries, and you need to do treatment using stent, where you put a scaffold, a tube there. The smaller the diameter of the stent, the higher the risk stenosis. In other words, it can clog up.
Definitely.
Okay. Men have bigger arteries, so they can have 3 millimeter stent or 4 millimeter stent. Women, because their arteries are smaller, they now get 2 millimeter or 2.5. So their outcome is not as good as men.
The men.
And then also, there is what you call small vessel disease. In other words, somebody can have coronary artery disease or blockage. It is not affecting the big vessels, the tiny branches. So those tiny branches can actually have blockages that make it difficult for blood to flow to all the muscles. And that is more common in women, and we call it microvascular angina, okay, because they are small vessels. So women tend to have more of that. So in actuality, you might do the coronary angiogram and the big arteries are okay. You don't see the blockage, but the blockages are in the smaller arteries. So those things are more common in women.
So can this attack occur, maybe a heart attack, involving the tinier vessels and escape the notice of the woman and maybe even the doctor?
Not really. Symptomatically, okay, when you have a heart attack that involves the big vessel, the area of the heart muscle supplied by that big vessel is bigger. So when you have such a heart attack, it's going to be
it makes a bigger sound.
It's a big one, okay? And it's going to make you sick when you survive it. Now, if it's the smaller vessels, so the area that is affected is going to be small. The damage is going to have affect smaller vessels. But it's not necessarily the damage when you are talking about the microvascular angina. It's actually more symptoms. They might not have damaged heart muscle. When you do imaging, you can still see the heart, pumping well. But it's the smaller, they have symptoms. They have chest pain if they're trying to rush or climb stairs. They have, chest pain. But there are some medications that can take care of that. Okay, so by and large, what we are talking about heart disease in women is that women need to recognize that they might be having heart attack when they are just feeling unwell.
Okay.
Feeling that they don't have energy and all that stuff. And to present early, go to the right doctor who can make a diagnosis and manage you. And know your risk profile. Okay, because if you know your risk profile, you can modify some of those.
Okay, before we talk about modifying, I heard that there are some symptoms that occur at rest and even in sleep. How is that possible?
Well, the point is that if you already have coronary blockage and you are now having a heart attack, it can occur at any time.
Okay.
It can occur while you are sleeping because that's when you have the plaque rupture. Just like, remember also when we are talking cardiovascular disease, we are not just talking about heart attack, you're also talking about stroke attack, brain attack. Brain attack is the same pathophysiology.
CVDs.
So people can stroke out in sleep, and when they wake up, they're unconscious, and people found them dead and unconscious. So it can happen at any time. It's unpredictable. But there are certain conditions that can increase that, okay? So infection, for example, because it's important to know that preventing infection can also decrease heart attack. And that is why pneumococcal vaccination, which is very common, part of your normal healthcare overseas, is now available in Nigeria. So pneumococcal vaccination is actually to decrease heart attack. So there are a lot of factors that play in here. It can happen at any time.
Okay, let's begin to talk about some of those modifiable risk factors.
Okay. Well, let's start with hypertension. Hypertension is very common, okay? And a lot of people don't even check their blood pressure. You should measure your blood pressure at least once a year. On your birthday, just go and give yourself a good, health check. Know what your blood pressure is. If your blood pressure is high, there are certain lifestyle changes that will make a difference. These things work. Okay, and you don't start treating high blood pressure, just get a pill and start taking medications for blood pressure. The first thing to do is lifestyle. Decrease the amount of salt you eat. That alone can drop your blood pressure by 4 millimeters, which
that is significant.
That is big. This is big. Okay, if you do regular exercise, Okay, consistent
I have
exercise.
to pause you on the exercise. We're going on a break, but when we come back, we talk about that because exercise, I know that's huge. We are going to be back in a minute. Please stay with us. It's Health Matters. You're welcome back. We are talking about heart health in women. It's Health Matters on Channels Television. You can call 0805 468 3514 for your questions on heart health in women. The number should be showing on your screen now. You can also tweet at CTV_Mary A as the show goes on. So, Doctor, you were talking about exercise.
Okay.
I know that's a big one.
Yeah, so modifiable things, regular exercise, consistent regular exercise at least 4 to 5 times a week can actually achieve blood pressure reduction.
Does walking to the bus stop qualify as exercise?
It does, but you have to do enough. If you can do 10,000 steps a day, that's enough exercise.
You know, that's a big call.
I
decided to
you can
measure my steps.
Yes.
And I did 5,000 plus in a whole day.
Yes.
And I was really walking.
Well, I tell you, 10,000 is a great one, but even if you do 2,000, it's better than nothing, okay? 10,000 steps is enough. Some people on their job, they can climb stairs and don't use elevators and all that stuff. So those things can add up. So do that. So that's one. What about obesity and losing weight? On average, if you lose 1 kg of weight, you drop your blood pressure 1 millimeter. So can you imagine losing 5 kg? That is 5 millimeters. And already, exercise we add, okay? So salt we add. So already you are getting up to 10. So
let's just take a quick call here. Hello, is that Okorafo?
Yeah. Yeah, Okorafo from Aruchuku in Abia State. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your question?
Doctor, I want to find out, some people are saying this issue of heart problem, that if you use salt, put salt in the food, that you don't need to put all these cubes, that the cubes also contains salt. But people will tell that it's not sweet if you only put salt, no cubes. You take season the food. So what do we do? Do we
By cubes, do you mean sugar?
No, I mean like this Maggi Raiko and
seasoning. Okay,
seasoning. Seasoning for food, for soup, or maybe for stew, or for doing all this mede. So what do you do? And the exercise you are talking. Now, some people will tell you that if you want to call it exercise, you must do it at least every day. But you are saying 4 times or 5 times a day, but someone says you must do every day. So I don't know which one do we follow. But
all right then, Okorafo. Thank you. We'll let the doctor answer that.
I didn't really get the question. Summarize it.
He's saying that people are saying you shouldn't put seasoning in your food. That seasoning contains salt as well. So salt and seasoning, bad news for you. And what's your opinion on that? And you are saying exercise 4 times a week, but others are saying every day. What's your take?
We're talking about minimum. Let's talk about the exercise stuff. Exercise you should do at least 4 to 5 times a week. If you can do it every day, good. We are talking about.
So you're saying at least.
At least. And each should be of moderate intensity, okay? And then it should be at least 45 minutes. Okay, that's it. Now, when it comes to salt and seasoning, basically you need to look at the labels. You have to look at the salt content of your seasoning. If they are too salty, forget it. I don't want to call names. There are some popular things people use here to cook. They are very salty.
Majorly salt.
Majorly salt. Okay. So basically, the way to look at it, look at the food labels. If they have too much salt, cut back on them. So we talked about, what about vegetables? Plenty of vegetables to make sure that you eat things that are rich in potassium. That will decrease your blood pressure. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that modifiable things can actually take care of that. What about, we talked about obesity, losing weight is important.
Definitely don't smoke.
That's right, don't smoke. What about cholesterol? You should know your cholesterol level. Just a simple blood test will tell you what you need to do. Okay, diet and exercise and weight loss will also help your cholesterol. And your doctor might now say this is not enough, add medications. These are all modifiable, and they go a long way.
I have to thank you very much, Doctor. We've run out of time, but this was so interesting. I'm going to have you back on something similar. Thank you so much. The Rose of Sharon Foundation is once again impacting the lives of widows and orphans in the country, with the belief that good health is a prerequisite to enjoy good life. The foundation has organized free medical services in partnership with Czech Medicals for a positive start in 2022. Here's the report.
These women, over 100 of them, are widows, and they're here to receive medical services offered to them by the Rose of Sharon Foundation.
I hope you are good.
Before they begin, the women go through a general orientation on what to expect.
Talking is a therapy. If you don't talk and you just assume that you will be fine, it's denial. It's called denial. You are denying yourself the opportunity to get better. You are denying yourself the opportunity to develop and to grow out of that thing that is disturbing you.
The healthcare program is done in partnership with Ibadan-based Czech Medicals, with Czech meaning creating healthy communities and kingships.
What we practically do is to try to cover as much primary healthcare services as much as possible. So they will be having an opportunity to actually meet with doctors who would find out what problems they may have and provide the required drug treatments. For those that may have surgical conditions, whether fibroid, hernias, whatever the surgical condition may be, we're going to be screening them. Even high problems, people who may have cataract, once we screen them and see that they have such conditions, we're going to be arranged for them how they can get the surgeries done free of charge.
Our major focus actually is economic empowerment and financial independence. But at the same time, you've got to stay alive to be able to do anything you need to do. So Rose of Sharon Foundation came up with this healthcare program some years ago. So we just felt that this is the beginning of the year. Before we get into other programs for our widows, their children and orphans, we should take care of their health first.
Beneficiaries of the program relay their appreciation to the foundation.
I came here this morning for my refraction and to change my glasses. I want to appreciate God in Mami Floshalak's life. She has been so wonderful. And right here and right now, some widows are still even inside, doing their checkup, having drugs, giving drugs.
God has been using our mommy for us in many ways. Even today that we are having a medical treatment, I'm really pleased and I'm really appreciate her.
The Rose of Sharon Foundation is an NGO focused on alleviating the plight of widows, their children and orphans.
There you have it, women taking care of their health. They say, without good health, you can't enjoy good life. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Musu, for coming to the show. That was really, really an eye-opener for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And thank you at home for being there. Have a lovely day. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.